I think we're about to start. We're getting lots of thumbs up from the back because I think there's quite an important fashion show to happen in an hour, so we'll be booted off this stage for the glamour of the fashion show. Hi. Just to introduce myself, my name is Anna Berry. For those who weren't bored to tears by my earlier session on how to use sourcing in new markets, today we're going to have a panel discussion on something that's absolutely critical and is running through all of our businesses and will continue to be important that it runs through our businesses for the future, and that is sustainability. I've got an amazing panel of people here who are much more expert than I am in their fields and what they do to support the sustainability. And the risk of sustainability, and particularly when times are tough, it's very easy to walk back for sustainability and think about profit, but it's really important that you don't do that and you stick with your purpose on that. So there are ways around where actually sustainability can drive your business to be more profitable because you can take waste out. Those who I used to work at John Lewis, I worked there for 33 years and bought 22 categories in those 33 years. So jack of all trades and master of none. What I won't do is bore you with all of those categories, but I've done everything from fashion to beauty to home and tech. And what I've learned is that sustainability journey is different in different areas, but really important to take it on board. Following 33 years at John Lewis, I then set up a retail consultancy with 3 colleagues. So we are called Retail 100 Consulting because between the 4 of us, we have 100 years of retail experience. So we're all old hags. We've been around the block quite a few times. I know I don't look old enough, do I? The lighting is too strong here. Anyway, so as part of Retail 100, we support Hive and we support Source, and it's a great venue for those of you who are early on in your journey to just gather as much information as possible. I'm going to finish with a quote after my introduction. I was well famous with John Lewis, but I think it's worth bearing about when you're trying to think about what's important to you. And the quote is, "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." And it's very easy to have that belief and to think, well, it doesn't really matter what I do, I won't do my little bit. But I have learned through all the businesses that we've supported since I've left John Lewis and in John Lewis, every little bit counts. And it can mean an extra step and it can mean hard work, but it's worth the investment and the risk. So I'm actually going to shut up for most of this session, which is not my usual place, but I'm going to pass over to our experts. So if I could ask Christian to introduce yourself.
Cedric.
Cedric, the good start. Cedric, to introduce yourself.
Very excited to be here. My name is Cedric. I'm co-founder and CEO of Amoeba. We're building an AI platform to better manage your sourcing processes as well as your production coordination. I've actually been a serial founder basically for my entire career. I started my career in investment banking, quit very, very quickly. I absolutely hated it, and went off to Taiwan to buy a manufacturing company. So I've been a supplier, a manufacturer myself, not in the textiles industry, but in the hardware industry. Managed this manufacturing company for a couple of years. Then went over to Mexico to start my first venture-backed business together with a couple of co-founders. We took this company from seed to Series B, so it became quite a large e-commerce holding in Latin America. Exited this company, so we sold it off to another e-commerce holding in Germany called Razer Group. I managed the entire supply chain, really been an operator my entire career, and from that experience there was a lot of inspiration to think about how do we manage manage processes, and what is the gap that we have in the technology to really help us better manage those processes? And that's really gave me the inspiration to say, okay, that is the charm. Let's build another company. And ended up building Amoeba together with a co-founder. And super excited to be on this panel.
Thank you very much. And on to Simon.
Yeah, so again, similar. Many years in the industry. Started my career with Next. They've got a little stall over there. So if any of you young guys are looking to get on this path, I would recommend that as a company to sort of get on the platform with. I've worked as a supplier. I've worked in sourcing. Most recently was the director of sourcing and ESG for ASOS. I left there 2 years ago after 10 years and co-founded a startup kind of circularity business called Recom, which was around working with brands to recover products, where they were working with customers, looking at dead stock and seeing what life could be given, but also trying to educate in that circularity model of starting in a better place and then keeping it going around for as long as possible, even to the point of recycle and downcycle. And you'll see in the fashion show after this some incredible upcycle from Stuart Trevor, the founder of All Saints. But what I've also done with a partner of mine, Kathy, is we've started a consultancy. Again, it's It's called SP&KO, and it's around helping brands to, and retailers and also suppliers to navigate the challenges within this industry and maybe bridge the gap a little bit between the knowledge of the two sides, if you like. Also working with governments and NGOs to try and support the right types of legislation that are going to help us move the needle in this industry. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Great.
Over to Hayley.
And then to Hayley. Thank you, Hayley.
Hi guys. Throwing a little curveball here. As I am actually working in PepsiCo, so food and beverage, not exactly what you'd expect to have on this panel, I'd imagine. But I am a design manager in our design and innovation office. I'm based in Europe, and I've been quite lucky to kind of have experience across North America and then our global offices in Ireland. And now in Europe, we've actually found that there's quite a unique opportunity, especially in the merchandise space. That's part of the business that we're looking to scale. And Europe is really at the forefront of sustainable fashion, if you think about that in a global sense. So my angle has been so far to really push our boundaries and talk to the US teams that are starting to build this merch pipeline and kind of encourage them and show them examples of how we can do better. So that's how I've actually found Source Fashion in the first place, was some of my market research about a year and a half ago. And I've been very lucky to be a part of this community now and just continuing to kind of push and learn from each other. And hopefully I have something you guys can learn from me as well today. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. And last but not least, Ella.
Hi everyone, I'm Ella Andrew. I'm the Knowledge Exchange Manager and Policy Lead at Centre for Sustainable Fashion. Centre for Sustainable Fashion, or CSF, is a research centre based at London College of Fashion. We were set up in 2008 by Professor Dilys Williams, really with the kind of purpose of trying to question the status quo in fashion at the time. And today our work really centres around thinking about how we can try and really focus on how we can place earth and equity at the heart of decision-making within fashion. I joined just over 2 years ago now, and in my role as Knowledge Exchange Manager, which is a bit of a mouthful, I basically work with brands and retailers on their sustainability mission. And this can be relating to circular systems, design for sustainability. I also work on governance, which I'll touch on a little bit later. My background is actually in environmental policy and economics. So again, coming from a slightly different background to fashion. And I bring that experience through to my role at CSF through kind of a policy lead. So I also, in addition to working with industry, try to advocate for the shift to more sustainable legislation within fashion. So yeah, really excited for the panel discussion today.
Lovely, thank you very much. So I think what we'll do is I'll just get the guys to give you a little bit more colour about what they do and a few examples of the impact. And I think we've said the important thing is that you have to take that extra step in sustainability. And I know we always had that tension between the resource and the money and the time it took to actually invest in sustainability. And yesterday we had the team from John Lewis here. I don't know if anyone was here talking about circularity. They spent 2 years building a range of nightwear. A huge amount of time and effort, and if you're a big super tanker company like John Lewis, you can do that. They have a team of 40 people in their sustainability team, but it's very hard to make money and profit out of it, and you have to find a way to do that, otherwise people will not move sustainability forward. The critical thing as well is if you're going to do it, tell people that you're going to do it, and there's been lots of noise about greenwashing and green hushing and customers getting quite alert to things that don't feel authentic. So the importance of transparency is really critical, and I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that I like the conversation that IKEA had on sustainability. They had a notice in their new shop saying 78% of our rugs are from sustainable sources. We know that's not good enough, but we're on the journey and we know we need to get better. And as a customer, I'm like, yeah, I get that, I believe that, and at least they're acknowledging that it's not perfect. So we always say, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Tell the story, but make sure you're being open and honest and authentic about it. So what I wanted to do was to pass to Simon first to talk about that, because there's lots of legislation coming this as well. How do you navigate all the legislation and the need to be transparent and pull data together and tell customers what your sustainable program is, because there are lots of different layers within it?
Yeah. As you say, it is very complex. The industry is very complex. It's born out of a complex supply chain, lack of clarity, lack of vision. laziness. Now I don't work for any brand specifically. I don't mind firing the gun. It really needs us to sort of take a breath. And right now within the industry, everyone's under fire. There is a race to the bottom that's begun. So how do you put your head up and as Anna said, take a breath and get your teams that are working in ESG to talk about how you can become more sustainable, both socially and environmentally, because they're intrinsically linked. ESG, environmental social governance. The S is a bit too quiet, to be honest. So that there's an element of raising that. Without education with people, you're not going to change the mindset around planet. The E part, the environmental, is an easier one to be talking about. This is a sustainable fabric or whatever. There's no such thing. I think it's important to use the right terminology to avoid those greenwashing and SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. I call that rainbow washing, where we're number 7 and we're number 12 and whatever. So it's important to really authenticate and give cadence to everything that you're doing. Most retailers do not know their supply chain. They will know their tier 1. They might know a little bit of tier 2, maybe 3, but not 4 and 5. So already you're going out there doing things without knowing exactly what's going on in that space. And lower down the supply chain, there is a lot of things that we would all find uncomfortable to know about for people and planet. So trying to push improvements in sustainability from a moral or a value point of view, it isn't working, and it's not really aligning with consumers either. So I've started putting the word commercial in front of sustainable. So being more commercially sustainable. The opportunities to unlock the inefficiency that's in this industry by knowing more about your supply chain, and Cedric can talk a little bit about that in a minute, is going to give you the capacity to be able to go back to your business and say, we need to be doing this because not only will our customers care in the future, but actually we've unlocked inefficiency, which can give us profitability, more profitability. And with legislation and law changes that are coming, we will navigate our way away from any fines or penalties or hindrance towards being able to trade. So all of a sudden, when you start talking about the commercial values and not just the values that come from the heart, which is really should have been enough, then you're starting to talk to people that are controlling money. And then with the blend of things that Anna talked about earlier with speed, intake margin, but then net profit and understanding the whole impact of the supply chain, you can start to tell a story, and then you start to engage with the consumer, you start to resonate. And I know that not everybody out there today cares as much as a lot of us in here do, and we can see that with the rise of certain companies that are shipping in millions of products from certain regions. And it's not fair to just have a pop at that one company, but things are moving quickly. E-commerce came in the early noughties and changed the way we all shop. Well, someone else has come in and changed the way again, and then we've got vintage, and we're talking about circularity. So it's all moving, but the opportunity to unlock the capital that is there to be had by being a bit smarter and investing some time and effort and energy, and then realize that capital and put that into a story that can be told, will deliver more sustainable activities for people and planet, and absolutely, in cooperation with your sourcing strategies, will be the thing that delivers you profit and gives you a commercially sustainable business going forward. That's kind of, there's a ton of stuff aligned with that.
He's very passionate about this, guys.
Yeah,
we could probably spend about an hour on
I'll
this.
shut up
now. No, that was perfect, Sam, and that's what I wanted to say. It's really important that you're authentic and you feel it, but you have to work hard at it, and the extra step is worth it, and there may be ways you can actually unlock profitability by doing that. So Cedric, over to you, because you're the expert in the transparency and how we could possibly unlock it using technology.
To a certain extent, yes. I think just as a background, what we do is we are building an AI platform that sort of captures a lot of the data that's flying around in your different emails, in your different PDFs, in your Excel sheets, brings that data together to then really provide this real-time view about where do you stand with different orders, where do you stand within your production, where there's certain delays, and you can just become much more efficient as a company. So we really never positioned ourselves as a sustainability startup, but really as an efficiency startup. However, when we talk about sustainability and efficiency within a supply chain, it's actually all about waste. It's about wasted capital, it's about wasted resources, and it's also about wasted product that ends up in landfill and thereby is bad for the environment. So coming back to Simon's point, I really see that there's this connection between, what can we do to really help the bottom line, but at the same time also help the environment, because waste is not good. It's not good for your bottom line, and it's also not good for the environment. I believe that when we talk about this whole sustainability angle, and when we talk about sustainability also with different brands, very often there's this very idealistic idea when we think about, okay, let's make the world better. As you say, it should come from the heart, but at the end of the day, we're speaking about massive companies that are, churning out a lot of money and a lot of products, and they need to become more efficient. So in the end of the day, it's not about, let's just trace a little bit more, let's just have more statistics on how bad we do on sustainability, but let's really think about the operational improvements that we can make that are, A, good for the company, but also really good for the environment, because these two actually do go hand in hand, especially when it comes to innovation and enabling that through technology.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Cedric. I agree. And there are lots of new systems coming through to help increase that visibility, and I think it's going to be really important. But to Cedric's point, you have to start out with the vision of what you're going to do and put yourself out and decide how you're going to sustainably and commercially run your business by taking cost out. And we did a piece of work in John Lewis when I was head of Christmas, where we decided we'd take all the plastic banding off the Christmas trees that were coming from China because it was really unsustainable, and the cardboard boxes were okay. We broke so many trees that we ended up costing the business so much money. So you have to be very well aware that sometimes in sustainability, you push this lever down here, but if you don't think about the consequences, it pops up somewhere else. It's whack-a-mole, it is. It's a journey. So, you need to take the extra step. Whereas in other things, we took out all the packaging. And packaging's been a really good example of where we have been able to take cost out and sustainably has helped the planet. It's been the easiest one to tick the box on, but the next stage has got to be to not have the overproduction and the waste and the consequences of what we talked about earlier, that 40% of fashion never hits the shop floor before it gets reduced and ends up in a landfill. So lots of consequences there. I want to talk to Hayley now about Pepsi and where they are on their journey, because they're on a journey on their sustainability in different categories. So it'd be really useful to know from your perspective.
Absolutely. I think where we are right now is such an interesting place to be. As I mentioned, we're quite new in the merchandise space. We've always had Pepsi merch. I'm sure you've seen it in vintage stores. But across our portfolio, there is an ambition to really grow this. And at the minute, we just have not had a bottom line to hit as of yet, and I think that's been a unique opportunity to really kind of push premium, push our learnings, push sourcing. So, being based in Europe, sourcing from European manufacturers, finding factories in the UK. I've done about 4 or 5 factory tours just in the past few months, meeting people, talking to people, learning a lot. And with that opportunity, it's been a chance to kind of show our business what it really could look like to create sustainable garments, and also kind of convince them of that storytelling piece that, the future of our generation is, by 2030, it's going to be primarily Gen Z, and their priorities are shifting. So if we want to maintain relevant brands in this space, especially in a merch space, we really need to start now with the sustainability kind of side of that. I was actually in the US last week and speaking to teams there, and I think historically Europe's always been a little bit ahead in this space, but I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. One of our teams there has done a whole upcycling initiative, and they're actually taking the point of sale units, so any of the in-store materials that we're building for our brands, and some of our event materials as well, like tarps and things with our branding on it, and they've created an entire blueprint of how you can take those materials and then upcycle those into brand merchandise. So the next time a marketing partner comes to us and says, we've got an event next week, quick, we need something, we want 20 tote bags or 200 tote bags or whatever that is, we've actually got stuff that's been made from the waste. And that to me was such a beautiful example, and I was so glad to see that happening already in the US. So, that's just one example of something we're starting to scale. But I think as we start to build into a proper pipeline for merchandise, our main focus will be creating a tiered system. So maintaining that best-in-class example of made in the UK or made in Europe, but then also introducing those more cost-effective items and really kind of figuring out how we do that. And that's kind of where we're at right now, which again, very excited to be here and learning from these guys, because this is, that's how we push it forward, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hayley. Much appreciated. We like that. And then Ella, you could tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we've heard a lot about some really great sort of on the ground, ground up approaches. On the other side of the spectrum, CSF has just launched a program called Governance for Tomorrow. which really aims to sort of look at senior leadership decision making as a kind of key blocker for some of these sustainability decisions. It's managed by CSF and supported by our kind of long-term partnership that we have with the luxury group Kering. And the aim is really to develop new and alternative methods for governance within luxury fashion that actually aim to centre people and planet and ensure that in those kind of quite secretive board decision-making conversations, people and planet actually have a seat at the table. The programme kicked off last year and will be running up until 2027. We're kind of engaging with traditional research, so CSF has a group of expert researchers and we're collaborating with Middlesex University to conduct a review of kind of existing governance practices, but also speak with experts across different industries. Perhaps we need to speak to Pepsi and others alongside civil society and academia to really understand what could future governance practice look like. And I think what we're really realizing is that existing practices just aren't good enough from the sustainability teams that we engage with, whether it's ASOS or M&S or Urban Outfitters. They're really struggling to get these projects off the ground that they feel will really have a meaningful impact on sustainability. So we don't want to just sort of be conducting traditional research. We're going to be prototyping what these kind of board compositions or board conversations could look like. And we have recruited a kind of model board of 11 members who are international. They range in age from about 25 all the way up to 70. Some represent nature, come from kind of indigenous experiences. Others have really kind of long-standing careers in sustainability and in fashion. And we're really excited about what this project could mean for what these kind of, quite secretive board-level discussions could look like in the future. Really excited to see where that project could go and how it could really unlock some of the tools that we need to ensure that sustainability can get the buy-in from those senior leaders. Yeah.
I think that's one of the most interesting things. We had a conversation at another event I was in, and getting senior leaders to buy in is absolutely critical because it's not coming, if it's not coming from a chairman or a board and it's coming top down. And that's where M&S, I think, did a great job initially with Plan A, that it was very clear and they learned that they couldn't do everything all at once. And Mike Barry, who I know has spoken, he was saying you have to kind of, it's baby steps, you have to go with it. But if you don't get the leadership supporting it, it's really difficult to make this happen. But when you're in a smaller business, and one of the examples I've had is having been with a super tanker like John Lewis, where it's very hard to turn things around. I'm with a startup company and they're called Reborn, and they make product from waste. And the company had got funding from Brunel University. The waste comes from the UK, and the product is absolutely beautiful because it's not good enough just to make product from waste, because if it looks like it's made from waste, no one's going to buy it. So it has to be beautiful, but there's also a ceiling on the price that you can charge for it. And we had a very heated debate. So the product was sink-side products, so drainers and washing basins, and we're planning to get onto food-safe product in the longer term, but that's quite tricky to do because the product comes from waste. But the most heated debate we had was when we were very clear that the two key strands were A, it was made from waste, but B, the waste was in the UK, so there was no carbon footprint. It was literally gathered from waste sites. When one of the marketeers said, no, we need to get more profit margins, no one will know that if the draining board, the metal stainless steel on the draining board, will just have to go to China for it. It's great quality and it's really unbelievable margin. And the three buyers who were in the room were like, absolutely no way, because it just destroys the purpose of the company. So on one SKU, to make a little bit of money, you have undermined your whole purpose. And actually we needed to take a step back and say, okay, we actually ended up going to Wales and getting Welsh steel. It was more expensive, but actually we just amortized it throughout the range, and that's what I was saying to you earlier. Not every product has to make the same kind of profit. But it is a challenge, and it's a very big challenge in a small business with no big brand budgets. How do you tell people what you're doing? I just wanted to ask you guys some of the challenges you've had along the road. Simon, anything that you can think of?
I think the biggest challenge, and it still is the biggest challenge today, is that this war is on. The battlefield is busy. The CFOs, CEOs, and so on are being shot at left, right, and centre, metaphorically, of course, but I guess to them it feels real. And therefore, trying to get someone to sort of put their head up from a situation like that and listen to an ESG team or someone who's talking about something that's coming down the road, they're trying to survive today. They're not as focused on tomorrow. That's not for everyone, but if you are able to put that financial sway on it, and I think legislation and law and changes and customer behavior changing will be the thing that makes them have to take a breath, if you like, and realize that we do need to look at this. And if any CFO, CEO, COO that's worth their salt is aware of the things that need to happen in the future, whether they're fighting for their lives today or not, but that commercial element, that commercial sustainability that maybe has been seen as a headwind, we're going to have to buy better cotton, we're going to have to do this, if you didn't do anything, you didn't get that exposure through your supply chain, it's just an added cost. But that isn't the case. You can get that knowledge, you can autonomize that data and that knowledge and turn that into capital. But then how you position that, and I think these legislations and laws are needed, they're long overdue. It is a bit of a kick up the bum. It's like, we've been told to tidy our bedroom up and we've not done it. Well, if we come home tonight and it's not tidy, the lot's in the bin is where they're going. France, the EU brought out another statement yesterday on their, what they've termed fashion tax, which they were dialing down on, and now they've gone after again. It's end producer responsibility ultimately. There's a lot more to be done in that. But what they're trying to do is change your behavior. I think something like a sale tax, to stop that 40% overproduction. Every time a garment goes on sale, you might get the deal, but the business has to pay a tax on that sale price. That'd change their behavior because they don't want to pass the cost on to you. They don't want the cost, so they might start looking at their model a little bit differently. So some of these things that could be coming could be the tailwind that's needed to just give that little bit of a lift. And anybody that out here or anyone that works in that ESG space, that's the area I would say. Go and unlock that capability and then think about how you present that to your executive board, your management, and explain that all the different aspects, don't try and lean on them from a morals point of view when they're under so much pressure. They're paid to do a job. It's investors, it's shareholders, it's capitalism, it is what it is. And I perhaps spent a lot of time within ASOS trying to, I had a great CEO, and there's still a great CEO there today, but he's also got other things, or he or she will have other things to deal with. So I went down the road of trying to unlock the capital, look at the sourcing strategy, look at the number of suppliers we had lower down in the chains and how we could work better. And if we could work better, could that move us towards more sustainable cotton? Co-opetition, we worked across the industry. We worked, instead of collaborating, we went and talked to our competitors and then worked together to solve problems. If you look out there now, we work with Nike and H&M to create a circular design guide, work with the London College of Fashion, and we wanted that to be out there to sort of help industry. We worked on circular collections, not quite backed up with everything, so you could fall foul of greenwashing, green that then turned into green hushing, but it's progress, not perfection. Plan A, there is no plan B. We've heard all the little acronyms and so on. Oh, and by the way, the planet will be fine. It's us lot that are, basically. Unless we get hit by an asteroid, the planet will survive. We won't. So it's up to us whether we want to be here and be part of something and not take everything down with us. But as we've seen over the hundreds of millions of years, this planet will be fine. We are the ones that are, if it doesn't want us, it'll get rid of us. And we have an opportunity to be here and do something and give a bit back, but we just need to invest a little bit. And that includes money, includes energy, effort, time, and then education's a funny word because, I didn't hate school. I like football, I like art and so on, but I wasn't an academic. But we just need to tell a story. We need to get that story out there. It has to be genuine. It has to have the backup. And then maybe we'll start to see customer behavior change. And even consumption, that C word. It's not the C word he's got on his fans over there. When I saw that surprised me. But that C word, consumption and overconsumption, that's another part of this. That's maybe for another session. But it just needs that sort of focus.
I think you're absolutely right. Cedric, any?
Yeah, I think you just made a super interesting point regarding the amortization of the locally sourced materials. And I think the biggest difference that I really see when I speak to some really, really large companies and also some small, medium-sized brands or textile manufacturers it's the difference in the short-term and long-term view.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to the adoption of new technologies, the innovation, and also the strategic initiatives. And usually what I find is companies that are either privately owned or where there's still a founder or an original, founder or CEO very strongly involved with a very strong long-term vision. They take much bigger bets and are more willing to take the risk and are more willing to go down that path, as you mentioned, to let's see something through up until it amortizes and when it actually comes back to being commercially sustainable and being good for the business. So I really think there's this big disconnect when we look at a lot of enterprises where it's very, very short-termist thinking. It's about, okay, how can we improve our results for the next quarter, to show it back to our shareholders, which is drastically different to, I don't know, we're working with a leading textile manufacturer in Braga, Portugal.
Yeah.
And I'm talking directly to the owner.
Yeah.
Young guys, they're super excited. They said, no, we want to innovate, not just for tomorrow, not just for the next quarter, but for the next 2-3 years in order to really gain a competitive edge on both the efficiency side, but then also on the sustainability side, so that it really becomes a DNA of the operation of their business. However, it all requires a certain level of seeing things through and really looking towards that vision and really trying these different things. So I think the timing element is a huge factor here.
I think you're right. The most difficult thing is you're in the day and you're trying to drive the business on a day-to-day basis and you're trying to do the long-term strategic point. And I think that is the tension, isn't it, of being able to do that. But we had a thing in John Lewis which we instigated, the 80-20, where we started KPIing the buyers and merchandisers on their sustainability strategies, which we'd never done before. But you can't beat people up on it, or you kind of get people reluctant to do it. You have to make it part of something that's bigger and get them involved in it and really get them behind it. We set up matrix working teams where we pull teams from each part of the business, because when you're in a very big business, you'll have marketing with one KPI who just want to drive conversion and traffic, and the buyer's going, they're killing my margin because they're always discounting or whatever. So you had to, as a matrix team, build people, and that is why in a big business where you can build a small matrix team, their mission is to what's the sustainability strategy and what our win's going to be this year. But it is baby steps, but you have to get people to believe in it. And I think the storytelling is really critical. And one of the comments we heard here was like, data is just storytelling with heart. And I think that kind of sums your business up, really. Customers want to hear this, but it has to be authentic, it has to be backed up by data, and you have to kind of believe in it. And Haley, you talk about Gen Z and the fact that your company attracts it, the Pepsi attracts Gen Z. They seem to be more interested in sustainability, but they don't have Patagonia pockets, so it's really hard in that tension of how you get people to buy, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, as you guys have just spoken about, I think that short-term versus long-term goal is something that I'm constantly reminding in meetings, and sometimes you even forget yourself, the week to week sometimes it's like, quick, we have something that we need to turn around in 2 weeks, but it's that constant thing in the back of your head, no, like we're not actually going to take the shortcut to get that done the way that you want it to get done, and it's like we need to continue to remind ourselves of that longer term ambition, and if we want to stay relevant, I think that has to be done. And so it is really an education. Again, hate to say the word education, but it is that kind of conversation that has to be ongoing of like, here's why. And I might not have all of those answers why, but at a base level, it's really, consumers are changing in what they're interested in and what they want to hear from big companies. We have such a potentially big platform to kind of speak about these things, so we need to use it in the right way. And we just have a lot of, honestly, like I will ring people and just say, I just want to let you know this is where I'm coming from with this. Plastic bottles are a big problem, but actually textile waste is an even greater one. So if we're starting to step into that space, let's not create another plastic bottle problem that we need to solve.
Interesting, because the lid thing now, which is a big thing, where the lid is now, you can't detach it so that it can be recycled, and this company Reborn is quite a lot of the product is made out of plastic bottles. You've got textiles from Turkey, a lot of the toweling is made out of plastic bottles, and now they've put fabric in as well, because they've realized if you blend bottles with fabric, it's then softer. So everybody's evolving and learning, and we will have more circularity. But the big players like the PepsiCos and the John Lewis, it is important that they are driving this. And Ella, how are you finding that with your conversations? Are you finding that there's a warmth from the CEOs to move forward on this?
I think there is, but it's about figuring out, what it is that encourages sustainability to become kind of that lever. Is it talking to like the emotion? Is it talking about kind of future generations and the impact on them? as Simon was saying, the planet will still be here. It's about us and what we want to do to ensure that we will all still be here and we'll have a functioning fashion sector that we can all be really proud of as well. But I think in addition to senior leadership, it is all about us in the room. It's about, the product and commercial teams and sustainability teams and ensuring that there is that kind of empowerment to make decisions in your everyday role that really prioritize and account for sustainability, whether it is kind of material choice, whether it is supplier selection, whether it's marketing. Each of these small things across the entire product development process have a really important role to play. So I think it's that ground up in addition to the top down as well.
Great.
One comment. It was funny that you mentioned the bottle of that is then connected and the lid. There's this meme going around on LinkedIn where you see innovation in the US and you see a SpaceX rocket and then innovation in Europe with the bottle. I think we should have much more pride in exactly this type of innovation that we're pushing forward and what does it actually lead to and the mindset that we have in sustainability and with that mindset. I think it's oftentimes almost discarded as, okay, that's what the Europeans are doing and in the US we are launching rockets. Well, we do have AI startups like ourselves, so we do have a lot of innovation happening because also there's a big passion and a recognition for the importance of sustainability. And I think also we as a community should be much proud or have much more pride in really pushing this sustainability angle forward because I think there's a lot to it as well.
I think it's a great point. I think, as Simon said, there's going to be a combination of a bit of stick, which I think we need, because I do think when it hurts you in the pocket, you'll do it, and we just have been too slow, particularly in the fashion world where there's so much waste being produced. The homewares ranges are behind, because I work with homeware categories, but it's coming there as well on the fashion home range. We need to find a way to stop overproducing so much. And then I think this kind of, let's see it as an opportunity. The title was that we wanted to manage profitability and risk, but actually taking the extra step and saying, how do I take cost out of my business by being more sustainable? If I produce less, will I have less waste? Will I have less markdown? So just managing it and seeing it as a challenge and an opportunity. And the small things of a lid on a Pepsi bottle or whatever can really transform millions of lives compared to a space rocket that's not going to transform very many. But there we go. We won't get into a must-pump conversation.
Do you think Trump will revert back to lids that...
who knows? Well, he's just got rid of paper straws, hasn't he? Because when he's in the Oval Office, in 1 minute he's signing deals on gas, and the next one he's on paper straws. The guys who were in my session earlier know that I have a complete obsession with not talking about Trump, otherwise I will spontaneously combust. But anyway, I'm very conscious of time, and where the clock is ticking down. Has anyone got any questions before we say thank you to the panel? Anyone, any thoughts or questions?
Excuse me.
Thank you so much for the panel. It was really interesting to hear your different perspectives on how the industry is moving forward with sustainability. I guess just to touch on how you spoke about all the upheaval and the change happening both from a business, governance and consumer level, where do you think the industry is going in the next 5 years? Do you think that the larger corporations that have institutionalized this level of waste are going to disappear if they don't catch up and make big change? Do you think there's a lot of possibility for small business to come in with the right mindset, with the right systems in place to surpass those, having come from a place where they can pivot very quickly and show a different way of working in a different system? Just from your perspectives working in it, do you think that change is coming, and where do you think it's going to go?
What a great question. Who wants to take that?
I'd say that. I mean, absolutely. We're going to see a lot of familiar brands disappear. As we've seen over the past few years, it's going to be more and it's going to be quicker. We need to weed the garden and let the good stuff grow. And we're already seeing consumers be more individual. I can see, if only, with fashion, so we can talk, can't we? But how you styled yourself. That's not a style you've just walked into Zara. Sorry, Zara, and lifted off the shelf. You've put that individuality, that opportunity for smaller brands to do something and start engaging and resonating and building those stories is absolutely already happening. And the bigger guys who have got to that point where they're just in the race to the bottom, when you join the race to the bottom, why are you surprised when you hit the bottom? It's going to happen, and we are, sadly, because people are going to lose jobs, we don't want that, but we are going to see things disappear. But sometimes that if that's the case, then that's the case. It's because they've not stayed relevant or they've not been as proactive or invested how they should have. So I think what you said is, personally, I think it's a great point, and I think there's a huge opportunity for industry and smaller businesses.
I totally agree. The founder of Nike, one of his famous phrases was "innovate or die," and I think it's quite interesting even to see what's happened to Nike, who were the trainer brand. They were always going to be the coolest kids on the block. They've had a really tough time, and now they've done collaborations with other people. You can see Hoka coming through, On coming through. This next generation is less influenced by the big labels. They want new, cool labels. So I absolutely think if you don't innovate and you don't reach into this space and be sustainable and think about the future, I think you will see a whole raft of new brands coming in on the block who will take that space.
I'd assume most of you have watched the Netflix doc, The Shopping Conspiracy, Buy Now, A Shopping Conspiracy. If you haven't watched it, and there's a guy from Adidas on there talking about, what they did and then how he now sees things. And it's quite sad to talk about a lot of these things. It's like we're doomed, the industry's terrible and so on and so forth. But actually, flip that. What an amazing opportunity for us to exist and to harmonize with, I don't want to sound too hippie-ish, but with nature and therefore create a coexistent capability for us and this planet. It's as much of an opportunity, more so, than it is, oh God, we're all stuffed. So I stay there, otherwise I go dark and from the Death Star somewhere. So keep that positive mental attitude towards what opportunities are there, and use that Nike, innovate or go, but innovate, do lots of it.
Yeah, great question, really good. Any other questions?
Hi, my question is for the company Amoeba. Just with using AI to try and help us, help fashion companies identify their supply chains and help us become more sustainable, do you feel like there's a trade-off? Because I know AI also can be quite resource intensive. So in terms of the sustainability implications of using it to become more sustainable, but then it is using resources and maybe making us slightly less sustainable. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely a question for you, Cedric.
It's an incredible important question, actually, because I think we are all very hyped about AI and nobody actually talks about the sustainability impact. Actually, me and Simon had a conversation around exactly that, how much water is being consumed and power in order to power all these large language models and what is happening. And what is it that we get in return out of it? And I think this is really then to think about, okay, how do we leverage AI in order to actually get something good out of the balance? Because everything sort of needs some form of energy. And I think if we use AI to, constantly query, different types of questions in ChatGPT just for fun, I don't think we do something good with AI, and also not good, with the power that it consumes. If we leverage AI in order to then actually become more efficient in our supply chain and cut the wastage within our supply chain, probably the trade-off is a positive trade-off, and we actually end up in a net positive balance as opposed to a net negative balance. But I think there's a huge element around really thinking about how do we power these technologies and what's the real impact these technologies have. And I think, Chloe, our incredible head of growth and marketing, she's on that as well, to think about, okay, how can we actually think about even having our own ESG score as an AI startup, to think about, okay, how energy efficient are actually the models that we're using, and really being transparent about that in order to then push forward the net positive that we can create with our technology.
I think it's as Cedric says, and it's a great way to end. Thank you, because I'm conscious that Ahmed is going to get off the stage now. Thank you so much. I think that, it is a marathon, not a sprint, as we've said. Again, you've got to take the extra steps in. It is about people and partnerships and planet, and I would encourage you to see it as an opportunity. Ask questions, get people to support you, put the extra step in, and you can only do what you can do within your sphere. But if you're doing the best job you can to reduce your carbon footprint, to think about your supply base, to think about your customers and your purpose, then I think that's really all we can ask for. So thank you very much, Cedric, Simon, Hayley, and Ella. Really appreciate your time.